Hello there. As evidence mounts of a possible second wave of the coronavirus pandemic, the UK government looks at changing quarantine times and more lockdowns. Firstly, please subscribe and like this video to give my channel a boost. And I'm always uploading new content, so please do check back daily. Right now we have Cambridge University scientists warning that the coronavirus reproduction rate, or R rate, is close to 1 in every part of the UK. In fact, it is now thought to be above 1 in both the southeast and the southwest. This means that each infected person will on average pass it on to another. And if the R rate goes above 1, it means that the virus is spreading exponentially. And the higher it goes above 1, the faster and wider it spreads. That would mean that we are really back in the thick of it. So surely number 10 must immediately restart its daily 5 o'clock televised press briefings so that we can all see on a day-by-day basis exactly what the rates are and where. Because if the rate is close to or above 1, we are surely going to see more and more hugely economically damaging localised lockdowns. So don't we deserve to see the justification in big, bright, flashing lights, under the glare of public and press scrutiny? Or are we going to have to wait for Downing Street to appoint their brand new White House-style front-of-house spin doctor, or spin actor, or spin presenter, or whatever it is, the new spokesperson for the Prime Minister, before we hear anything? And it's not just in the UK. The rest of Europe is already reportedly seeing signs of a second wave, with countries being forced to consider taking substantial action to combat it. Germany has seen a rise from 2,385 cases a week just 2 weeks ago to 4,127 cases a week, leading to calls for wide-ranging measures to be taken. A virologist from the University of Hamburg, Jonas Schmidt-Chanasit, told the German broadcaster ARD, "In the worst case, if we really get a second wave, I define that as our health system being overwhelmed, then we won't be able to get around very dramatic, very drastic measures." But that's exactly what we want to avoid. Now travellers are being added to the mix as well. There are many clusters which politicians but also scientists will have to react to. Belgium has also seen a large increase in cases and has reintroduced social distancing measures as well as asking people to work from home. And the Belgian PM, Sophie Wilmers, said, "If we can't reduce the coronavirus, it will be a collective failure. We know that if we do not intervene drastically, even the start of the school year could be undermined." All this has led the UK government to re-evaluate the quarantine measures it has in place. And from reports, it looks like those people with coronavirus-like symptoms will be told to self-isolate for 10 days, which is another 3 days on top of the previous 7 days. And the reason for the re-emergence of the virus is being put down to the lifting of lockdown. Professor Jose Vasquez Boland, the chair of infectious diseases at the University of Edinburgh, said, "What we are facing is a comeback of community transmission after removing the lockdown measures. We have to be clear that the efficacy of lockdowns is only temporary. There will be a resurgence of new cases every time social restriction measures are lifted, as long as the virus remains in circulation." There are also reports that the quarantine period length of 14 days could be cut back to 10 days to make that the new standard across the board. And expect more testing with a shortened quarantine period. Professor Peter Openshaw, who sits on the new and emerging respiratory virus threats advisory group, NERVTAG, told Radio 4's Today programme, "I think if there were a lot of testing associated with the quarantine period, then the risk of reintroducing infection could be not zero, but certainly could be brought close to zero. And he added, "As testing is becoming so much more routine and widely available, we need to drive the testing up and reinforce hand washing and the use of effective masks, and I think the use of more effective masks needs to be widespread." That sounds to me like he wants to see a move away from the simple face coverings and some of the handmade and consumer masks people have been using up until now. A move up and to something more substantial, maybe even surgical. And yesterday, appearing before the all-party parliamentary group on coronavirus set up to ensure that lessons are learned from the UK's handling of the coronavirus outbreak, the chief executive of the NHS Confederation, Neil Dixon, said that the level of concern over a second wave amongst NHS trust leaders was very high. I mean, of course, there's a real concern about winter and the compounding factors there, but also about an earlier spike, he said. And now that a coronavirus second wave is supposedly sweeping across Europe and maybe even further afield, it probably means that travel, especially international and overseas travel, will be further disincentivised. Not by direct state action to limit flights, but by the risk of post-travel quarantine, potentially on both the outward and return legs of your journey. I would say it is not unreasonable to assume that all air bridges should be considered as permanently teetering on the verge of breakdown, as the message that you might suddenly be ordered to stay at home in quarantine for possibly 10 days on return from any overseas travel becomes the norm, the new norm. The utter decimation of the holiday industry and supporting sectors will of course result in the collapse of many businesses in the UK and help push unemployment up to levels hitherto unseen. However, the economy and jobs have taken second place in the big scheme of things, because the message the government is giving out is we must ensure the second wave does not crash upon our shores, whatever the damage to our personal and public finances. And let us not forget that these restrictions are not unilateral. There seems to be a sort of chaotic cohesiveness between the actions of the British government and that of our overseas counterparts. So expect overseas travel to fall to levels last seen by Noah and his family. Unless that travel is deemed to be essential, of course. Not sure who's going to be making that decision though. Anyway, if you want to hear more from me, please don't forget to subscribe and also press that little bell, or you won't get any notifications. And if you want to see more of me, buy a mug with my mug on it. So what do you think about this possible second wave? Please share and comment, and thank you for watching.